So earlier we were talking about the propaganda state that was sort of brought into the world by Joseph Goebbels, because I think before World War II, advertising was a lot more like direct, like hey, buy this product, buy my product because it does the thing it does better than the competition. It does it very well, kind of thing. And now it's like advertising is very identity based, and also if you watch films, there's everything has a narrative baked into it. So the whole society works as like a single machine of propaganda for the state. And that really started with Joseph Goebbels, and all the other nations sort of took that and appropriate it, and they just started producing propaganda in this really new, powerful way that the 88s had, 88 being, code for, because we can't say the N word, the big N word, So, anyways, I think it's super interesting now, the way you can sort of watch like a commercial or, just see the news and really get an idea of the bigger picture sometimes through reverse engineering in your mind the propaganda. So I think in sort of that sort of way a lot of the time. I think it's a good way to look at it. I think this is where people get tripped up, is they try and interpret things instead of understanding that basically everything is a lie. Or not exactly a lie, but it's trying to cook up a narrative. Because, real life isn't a narrative. It's just chaotic. Things happen. People do different things, But if everything has to be so dear, so baked into some narrative, so dialed in, that does it. And a lot of people become distrusting now because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. And at some point, if after 20 years, you'll probably see the narrative change course once or twice. So, there you go.
Okay, I think of, like, I'm also into this actions of systems and countries and regimes and politics as they do propagandas and ideologies, but I'm not like much into details, but I try to understand myself and understand them as what they do, like into a general perspective. So, but so I'm from a dictatorship that it's a big concern that how it's made up and how it is became a reality, like to have dictatorships in the world, in such amazing world that we are in, and then like having such ridiculous and nonsense big happenings, like having the system that is affecting everybody and making everybody crazy and mad and out of themselves, and distract them and disturb them like mentally and physically. So, and let's talk about it more,
What kind of sort of psychological controls, especially religion, do they use in Iran to sort of control people?
Iran is a theocratic dictatorship, and I mean, what kind? It's the name is just like what's the ideology they do, and the religion they do is like some sort of Islamic religion, and it's called like Shiites. Um, and in my opinion, it's really, really disturbing to human, in a sense that they make human less human, and the person or the individual becomes something of the ideology and not themselves. And I mean, yeah, and then it becomes a cold war because it's a subconscious thing and then conscious thing, so they distract consciousness because we are a receiver of thoughts, and we have to have a great core of ourselves to receive what is for us, but then everybody is distracted in their core and in their consciousness to really receive what the ideology wants to.
Yeah, you're talking about manifestation. I think, not to sidetrack too much, but I think manifestation is a big one because there's a big community around manifestation that sort of makes the promise that if you can clean up your core, if you can clean up your inner mind, that you can manifest, whatever you want practically. I think a lot of the teachers don't make it that simple, or don't advertise it that simply, but there is a certain truth to it, and I think it's more like you said, like people have things that can sort of grow out of them in a way. I guess in some addition, people are in the process of becoming something or doing something, but if they don't know themselves or don't understand themselves because of bad ideology, that'll actually affect their ability to manifest correctly what is actually for them, what actually is them, that's part of their body, that's natural for them, their fate, as it were, their karma even. So I think that's really interesting. I think it's a really particular and needed correction to manifestation thinking, because I think a lot of people think that they can just think of things and then just have it, but it's more complex than that. But I think sort of criticizing some of these criticizing ideology of, especially when we talk about politics and things like that, and the process by which people are kept in the dark. I think that's a really powerful way to think about manifestation, how it affects how it's effective in a bigger way, or how it's involved in existence in a bigger way, politics even.
Yeah. So, the thing is human, right? Like, we human, it's so dangerous to become something else than we are originally and authentically. Like, we become robots, weapons. We become weaponized, and we get to be weaponized by the ideologies to do the ideology and also manifest more for the ideology. And like our power is distracted and manipulated, our personal power to really not just survive through life but also thrive for ourselves into life and enjoy life and be great in life. But then we become, by these ideologies, we become not just distracted from being who we are, but then also, which is big part, which is first thing, and then second thing is also doing what is benefiting the ideology, or empowering. Instead of empowering ourselves, then we are empowering the politicians and governments and their ideologies to remain, to stay, and to be even for a while, because even one day of being under having a bad ideology has a consequence of years, and like, I mean, okay, one day not maybe, but having for 1 year of bad ideology takes like uh, first of all need to be understood and realized, and then pointed out, and then like resist to it, and then like finally take it down. But then if it's going now in Iran, for example, it's going for 50 years, the last regime and the current regime, and like and they have a 50 years of being there, and then making the structures, making the ideology, distracting people, gathering people, making people in same thing, making each individual same thing for the ideology, for the benefit of the ideology. Like they go to through religion, they do their own practice, religious practices, which is to empower the leadership is there, like, because the leadership is introduced as the man of God, and then the God is created for the people, and then so it's all connected, like metaphorically and into reality of the country and the society and the culture and the people, and it has a lot of consequences of people being dehumanized, demonized, because it's just one God and then billions of demons, or like they say, okay, like 1,000 demons, but I feel like they can create all the time of the entities into this metaphor and the ideology, and like if it's not gonna be stopped and then realized and noticed and stopped, yeah, and take and destroyed, yeah. Destroying the ideology is important because it's destroying the humanity. Like,
Yeah, that's super interesting. Destroying someone's humanity, like. I think society really, like, we were talking about this earlier, how we all have so many dimensions of us, but modern society just makes us have like one dimension. But then those other dimensions of us are sort of unfed, and so we have to do like weird things that are almost like not accepted to feed those dimensions of ourselves. And sometimes people will be hungry in some way, and they're complaining to their friends that they're hungry, and crying to everyone for help, and and then people wonder why someone will cheat on their significant other, or why someone will get into drugs, or I remember when I was like a teen, I would a lot of people around me were sort of burning out, and especially once I started to get into my early 20s. I remember one year there's four people went insane in my life that year. I was like 20, I think, when this happened. One was a friend of mine that was a bit kind of a close friend for a year. Probably shouldn't have been a close friend, but he went insane anyways.
yeah, I just want to add, like, from the last thing I said, like, about how in Islam and in the ideology of Islamic regimes, they it's just like in Christianity we have 72 entities of demons, so more or less, and I personally I get confused of that 72, and then in Islam we have like thousands, and then I think again I see it in myself. If I just give myself to the ideology and believe in such ways, I can subconsciously create every day more and more crave and create more entities that they created in the ideology, and those, I don't know how many demons that they originally created to be, and then every day people can create more of that, like copying the demons, like making copy versions all over their conscious, their mindset, their imagination, that can be spread into the like metaphorically into all over universe and existence, and applied on the earth, because it's connected to our beliefs on earth. So
When you mentioned that people create more demons, do you mean to say that, like in a metaphorical way, that like people will be sort of in the mindset of being negative and against things, and then suddenly they'll find more things to be against?
yeah, sure. Like so how like growing up is kind of, it becomes weirder and weirder by believing in and being brainwashed and being affected and possessed by the ideology. Is like we human became against each other through all this ideology, how it works. Like it's meant to make us messed up and chaotic in a bad way, chaotic in the way of the ideology, chaotic like in one narrative, but then chaos into that one narrative. So like when people, I think like when people go against each other, they into that conflict they can create more of demons, like just be sure that they are over the other one. And so and I have an idea that originally the way that, because we are all we get to be born in this world and taken to the holy, holy, like they call themselves holy people, holy persons, which I call them recently cons, to really to make the mindset of the newborn ready to be abusive to self, and then take the power of self as to create demons, to create into their conflict over each other, and then like into societies, when it can be into a family or relatives or just strangers twin strangers, to really try to get over each other by, and the brain is already by that first thing in life to take him to mosque or to church, to be possessed by this holy person, is to like, if I put myself into that position of that holy person, I can add to the newborn mindset that they're gonna just for their whole life they're gonna be creating demons out of the like the human is so powerful, and then when it's distracted it can do anything in a wrong way, in demonic way. So like once they are demonized and dehumanized, their power is taken to create more of demons.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how I guess when, like in U.S. back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, there's like the Beatles said that they were more popular than Jesus, I remember, and then churches organized burnings of the Beatles records. And then a few years later, they had the Satan scare, where some lady wrote a book that she was abused by Satan cults that ran through like the kindergartens and stuff. And then like people were really distrusting of the Church of Satan, which, go figure. But they were also really distrusting, like, my dad's mom. She was really antagonistic towards him playing Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, I asked my Grammy about Dungeons and Dragons, and she was, like, rolling her eyes and so disgusted at the game. And, but these sorts of ideologies, this is sort of why it's harmful, because you're talking about people that don't really have a point of reference for something outside, something alien. Because when you're an adult, like, you just go to work, you come home, you watch what's on the TV, especially back in those days. But, like, when, like, kids, kids are watching cartoons, getting all kinds of ideas about things, have their, imaginations are expanding a lot. Sex on TV has a very different effect on a child than a parent, And the parents are just like, oh, it's not doing anything it's not doing anything to the kids. They don't get it. But that's not exactly true. And I think that this thing of always creating demons, it's weird because then the kids are always seen as demons, because children will always be different than the parents a little bit, because they're living in different times, because, you can't step in the same river twice. Time's always moving. And a fixed ideology, because Christianity, and I suppose Islam is the same, it's very slow to adapt to the times. And so, like, Christianity, my dad always said this, Christianity is always 20 to 30 years behind. They're always doing something to patch a problem that was relevant 20, 30 years ago. And it's probably because the old people that are running it, quote-unquote running it, are remembering the problems from their youth and fixing the problems from their youth, Something like that. But Christianity is always 20, 30 years behind, on what's going on. And no one really knows how to fix it. And I think a lot of people don't even know it is a problem, but, and I'll just, as a disclaimer, a lot of people where I was from, I think, weren't that religious. They would go to church a lot, but I don't know if they really took it that seriously. My family took it very seriously, and I knew other families that took it very seriously, and a lot of times the children would sort of naturally become estranged because the ideology is just too strict, It's too one way. It's too one, it's like there's a whole rainbow, but it's stuck on red, because when you have children, the child is sort of expressing, sort of a dimension of you. It's like a continuation of you. It's an expansion of you in a way. Even though it's a different soul, that soul is being colored through you because you are giving birth to the child, whether you're a man or woman. It's coming out of your energy body, so it's complicated like that. And I think this is something where Christianity is pretty egregious, because, like, just having these ideologies that are not robust, that don't have enough facets to explain these things, is like, what happens, when your kids are into something that you don't know much about, Like, I've seen a lot of families where there's some animosity there just because, I see some people, like, I remember I used to be in karate, and a lot of the karate people very much mix karate with their spirituality, because karate is spiritual, but they kind of tried to make the Eastern, like, I think it's the Tao that's in karate a lot. They would mix that, like, with Christianity in a weird way, because it's simply good values, which is funny because that's borderline Freemasonic, isn't it? And I know some Freemasons that were big into karate. So yeah, it's a lot of different facets. Anyways.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of things, and for me, it's just like, I think, like, we have to really know how to give concept to all of this chaos created by the systems and ideology and elites, imperialism. If you talk in politics, like politically, like I don't know about like people say there is 13 families controlling the world, but I think for me is anybody can be, not just 13 families. These 13 families again can be a propaganda to cover the reality of it, but then like but whoever it is, whatever it is, they started to do it. We are sensing it, like it's been controlled, the earth and the life on earth. So by the ideologies and by their religion, because yeah, like we're gonna ask now why we go anti-religion, because yes, you can live by it, but this is not the whole life. This is not who we are and what we should believe. It just controlled and controlled atmosphere and condition to be applied on the societies and individuals in societies, since monarchies happened and hierarchy was created, and then people came under monarchies and ruling systems. So since then, it seems like, and I don't know how these monarchies happen. Again, it can be like by any force of like any source, any kind of possibility of consciousness or possibility of existence, dark side of existence or negative side of existence, to create monarchy itself, and then through the monarchy create the structure of society and apply the ideologies. And for the applying the ideologies, I think they needed the religion to make people like the best thing for them is being religion to be created, because I think so human have an evolution of mindset, and in those times the best thing is being religion to gather people, and but then the forces of existence and I don't know, elites, aliens in any period of time of history of existence could in a specific way try to make people, even over their sleep, in their sleep, while they're eating, while they're walking, while to distract people, and then now the distracted people need some kind of guidance, and then the guidance became the religion, and the religion is itself is not a guidance, is a dragging metaphor to conserve the souls, like. And in these days, like me personally, I try to be atheist to really break all this down and realize all this what happened before religion and how religion was created, and then what does religion since it's brought up and applied. And I identify religion as a tool for the ideology, and the ideology is a tool for the imperialism.
So, it kind of seemed like you were alluding to the Anunnaki, that you said that they had to create religion to make people more, more agreeable to being ruled and such. I've had this thought, or maybe Anunnaki is not correct, but I certainly feel that Abrahamic religion comes from aliens, because it seems like across history, a lot of, especially like really old cultures, pagan cultures, will have the same theme of like Earth Mother, Sky Father, or something like that. Okay, not exactly the same, but I don't want to call it primitive exactly, but there's a very similar formula that's not so complex as some newer religions. And of course, Hinduism, for example, is very old. But then again, maybe if you go to when it's very, very old, maybe it's a little simpler. I don't know. The Vedas are some of the oldest texts we have, and they're pretty complicated. They allude to a very complicated cosmology. But like here in Slovenia, you have Triglav. He's the god of the mountain by his name, and he's the god of Slovenia. But the Earth Mother is also worshipped, Nikromana. And there's some other gods too, but it's a lot simpler than a lot of other religions. But then like Norse mythology, I think if you go older, I don't know if even Thor or Balder, people like that, were worshipped. It was mostly just Odin. Odin was mainly worshipped, and he's like the Sky Father. Yahweh was also Sky Father. Different gods like that. So Marduk and all of these different old gods. So some of the question is, because paganism kind of iterated a lot, but I guess I'm kind of under the opinion. I'm under the impression that Hinduism and a lot of the other more complex religions are mostly coming from aliens, but Abrahamic faiths especially. I would say that Judaism picked up a lot of different traditions and aggregated into what it is, but I don't know. I think that as a phenomenon, Christianity is really bizarre, and Islam as well. But all Abrahamic religion, so also Judaism, is also somewhat bizarre. But yeah, were you alluding to the Anunnaki or something like that?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, again, I'm not like into names of the groups, or like I can't say the names, but this is like all what I sense since I'm trying to be atheist, because also weird thing is happening to me since I'm trying to be atheist is the gods are revealing themselves to me through people, what they believe, and so being atheist is not just being atheist and ignoring gods and not realizing any of gods or anything. It's just like you realize more that what people believe and where they are into their fantasy and beliefs. And also it can be dangerous for me, because then I can be opposite side of gods, which is demons. I mean, for me as an atheist, it's one thing, gods and demons. Like God can be the source of demons, but Abrahamic religions and the definition and explanation of religions became like there is a main world or place of gods and place of angels and hell and heaven and like this, but which is created through, again, for me, how I started to become atheist by realizing that imagination is everything. So all of this is created into our imaginations by, again, allowing someone ruling us and giving us imagination before we realize our own imagination authentically and originally. And so again, the danger of religion also, one thing is like we cannot have our own original imagination by believing in their imagination and using their fantasy in our imagination and occupying our mind with that. So and then becoming bipolar and chaotic, because then authentic self says something and then twisted self, which is the one that the aspect of us to believe in religion and become twisted in life on earth. And I think the whole negative and chaotic side, negative, chaotic, humanity is true that humanity is itself chaotic, which can be beautiful chaotic, and then we have chaotic through narratives of the ideologies. Then that's a dangerous chaos, and that's because I think a human, one individual, even not like all of us, but one is the life itself, and then we have to define what is life. Life can life is not just on earth but through our existence, and so it's infinitive and it's huge and it's and then life being ruled, being misguided, as they say, guided, because now they come to religions are like coming and to guide us through our own as they say, like, as they wrongly and falsely tell us that we are that human is dangerous, humans are dangerous, and it should be guided by the religion, by the gods. That is no longer dangerous, but what is dangerous now is the religion itself, to distract the whole existence of one person or the whole society, and which became the whole society, which is more dangerous. But then and also you mentioned Hinduism and all this, and for me, again, as an atheist, I'm against all of it, all of sorts of religion, because if I want to approve one, I have to approve all of them, and because it doesn't, it's about having God and creature. It's not about which God in which religion. So and I think they just introduce different religions because one religion cannot be applied for the whole population, and because then then because then it's more faster and quicker, real noticeable for the human to understand how misguided they are through one God, through one religion, and fighting it more easily than few religion and few beliefs. So it is few religion, but it works in same way, and they're ideologically. And then you mentioned aliens. I don't know if we can make aliens so negative that they came to distract us by the religion, but I guess probably they were just trying to guide us, but then the human themselves, just because somehow hierarchy was made already, or was pre-made, was about to be made, and then somehow they abuse this guidance by aliens, because aliens for me can be really positive things than negative things. So the human can just because the structure of power was being made, and then they just used it as God, and conversation with aliens became conversation with God, and
Yeah, that's really interesting because I'm pretty sure a lot of what we consider to be gods, I kind of talk about it religiously and like using religious terms because I think it's slightly more digestible than I talk to aliens. I don't know. I think I try and kind of make the connection of like aliens and angels are sort of the same thing. And so yeah, I really like that point. That's sort of a big point that I have as well. Of like, I told my wife this, that religion is sort of a immature function of spirituality. I think that it's not such a new notion in that sense, but Bashar talks about this, even how religions that are more Zen are a little bit more positive, and just don't really demand you believe anything in particular or think anything in particular. So also there's something else you mentioned. Oh yeah, you said talking to aliens is the same as talking to that became talking to gods. If the stuff about Atlantis is correct, I don't know how much you know about Atlantis, but I've been learning more about it recently. Before, I wasn't sure if I really took Atlantis seriously. Like, I figured Atlantis probably happened. Maybe I was like 50-50. Now I'm starting to mount suspicion that it did happen and that Plato was talking about something literal that happened, but I haven't read that much of what Plato wrote. So, because I read one time that it was more of like a philosophical thing of like the perfect society, the utopia. Now I'm kind of just reading Plato's work, I don't get that sense. I don't get the sense it's philosophical in the sense that we would think of like, sitting around puffing cigarettes, thinking of, farting around, thinking about what would be better kind of thing. It seems to be more than that. So, if a lot of that information is true, then yeah, there was a very direct connection between Earth and other worlds, and that broke down, and I'm not sure. I feel like there was more of an intentional fall into ignorance, like we were sort of led into ignorance somehow about other worlds, or simply the aliens didn't come here for one reason or another. The official story I've seen from like some of the people that believe in this sort of thing, which I guess I'm one of them now, is that basically the humans in Atlantis and a few other super advanced societies kind of were easily tempted to do wrong by the larger community of worlds, and just kind of I read somewhere that it had something to do with weapons and all kinds of wars and stuff, and then Atlantis was sank to the bottom of the ocean to stop all of that. I don't know everything about this topic. I guess I would have to read into it more, talk to someone who I do seem to have some memories of Atlantis, though. Like, I have some past life memories. So I think it has a lot to do with that sort of thing. Now, what kind of bothers me is that, like, Atlantis was advanced, Greece was probably advanced, Egypt was advanced, Zheng was advanced. There's these, like, pockets of advanced civilization. Plato, it's interesting because I read about this in Critias and Timaeus. Yeah, sorry, in Critias and Timaeus. Or maybe it's Timaeus and Critias, I don't remember. Yeah, in Timaeus and Critias, Plato writes that in Egypt, they were keeping records for a long time because they didn't have cataclysms. But everywhere else, they had cataclysms that would constantly erase man's memory and send them back to restart, basically. and go back to square one. And I suppose Plato is giving a history here, in a little bit of a backwards way. I guess I just don't see the point. I don't see what the purpose of interpreting these things metaphorically would be. Especially when you have Plotinus comes around later and is just Plotinus could I think he could even lift objects with his mind. Apparitions would appear to him, spirits and things of that nature, and he would just defeat them easily. I think a lot of this is in the sort of the context of secret society type of thing, like people that have magical acumen and can see spirits as well. So if you have a room full of people that can see spirits, which is a particular gift, and a spirit appears and everyone's like, oh, look at, that's actually not so strange, I think. Especially if it's a group of people that are his students that are on the same wavelength with him. So I think to keep that in mind, but I guess I feel that Plotinus was more powerful than Plato was, that Plotinus was a real mystic and probably an alien that came down, to teach us as the human race something, because Neoplatonism affected Kabbalah, it affected Western esotericism, it got into Islam, everything, it went everywhere, practically. And it's really absolute in a lot of ways, but I guess I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but I think when we talk about it, to bring up Atlantis, I feel like I need to show my math about Plato, because Plotinus said that Plato was that he was just teaching what Plato taught, even though it was obviously very expanded compared to Plato. I think what he was saying was that Plato had a certain, there's a seed of inspiration that Plato received, that's what he was dreaming up, and Plotinus was explaining that. I think that's the point. That's sort of what comes to me, or what spirits tell me about it, which I trust a lot, but what spirits tell me I trust a lot. So, all that said, I think I take the Atlantis myth seriously. I take some of the New Age people talking about Atlantis somewhat seriously. I think there's a lot of nonsense mixed in, but I think it was a thing that happened. I think even if we look at the Hindu texts, there's just a lot of evidence that we used to have technology we don't have anymore, that the human race was much farther along than it even is now, probably. I guess maybe not textual evidence, I'll say, not evidence in the sense, we have a few things that are cool, for example, Ravana's airport still exists, but it's just a really flat bit of land. It's interesting, there's things like that, but anyways.
While you were saying things, I was coming to this term of consequences of religion for a few reasons. We started to say of aliens, and having interpretation and connection with aliens became such weird again, because and impossible into mindset of religious people. If you say to religious people aliens exist and we can have connection to them, and we have actually connection to them, but we just all the time ignore it, and so consequences of religion is ignoring to all this, whatever is not religious, and whatever is the other possibilities, which can be the reality actually, and then this kind the religion itself, which is just a narrative or tool of ideology, or just a brainwashing way and misguiding people and nonsense and nothing else, is to not accept other things and ignore it highly, that actually there are many consequences in personal aspects, and then society, and then being together and being human on the planet Earth. It just like becomes so risky that we are born as a human and then we get dehumanized and demonized, and then we die as demons, as not a human anymore, as something that is supposed to go to hell or heaven, or something as supposed to be, because then they became soul on the earth based on the religious practices. Because again, if I say atheist perspective is to not believing in soul or spirit, but self, which self for me is something that can be anything. I can believe that I can be a spirit or a soul with specific features in me, in the human. So like in the person, and like so first of all, like talking with aliens and having connection to aliens shouldn't be such weird, because we are basically alien ourselves, because we are like floating in the space and like time, and we are into universe, and we are into existence, and we are just one kind of creatures. So other creatures, we are alien to other creatures, and they are alien to us, and like, so like it shouldn't be such weird and being ignored, and like, and they're less scary than the angels and demons, because like like angels and demons again are just a fantasy of, could be one group of people or could be one person, but then like having a general idea of other creatures as aliens and other worlds is more acceptable, should be more acceptable, because then they're not having a hell or heaven, they're not having they're not having a justice system when everything is unfair and injustice on the earth, and so fantasy of religion is for me, and demons and gods for me are more scary than the other creatures through existence, and like, because they are same as us. They could be look like us exactly. Like it could be ourselves into parallel worlds, and we just call them aliens. And like so we could be just talking to ourselves through different worlds, and like, or having connection. Okay, not talking to ourselves. I don't want to make it schizophrenic, but like just having connection and like having senses of it. And senses should be really considered more seriously in reality, and like because now our minds and our imagination somehow became religious under ruling systems. So but our senses and what our senses says should be more taken serious than what our mind says, because then, I mean, it could be we should take our minds also serious, of course, absolutely, but then if we are super religious, then no, I cannot do that. I cannot be in one narrative and just say this is it, and I have to think in this way, and my heart should be in this way, like, no, like so
yeah, the way that like you contextualize your experience through religion, and it's like, because you still feel what you feel to some extent, but a lot of times religion makes you repress what you feel. But even then, when something does come through, it's like you think of it in terms of the religion and you interpret it. So sometimes you feel something real, but it's temptation. It's the devil trying to get you, right? Nonsense. But which I wanted to mention. I think it's hilarious that that Gorilla's Clint Eastwood started playing it like as soon as you said schizophrenia, like because it's about shamanism. It's about a person becoming demon possessed. And Damon Albarn gets a lot of his ideas from the occult. In fact, he's a big fan of the septagram, which is really interesting because the septagram has to do with Enochian magic, which is one of the highest kinds of magic and drives people insane all the time. And the septagram also represents the 7 planets of the classical astrology, which includes the sun and the moon as planets, because that's how they were thought of originally. Anyways, back to the thing. Yeah, see, that's that I wanted to mention that though, because shamanism, right? The point of a shaman is the shaman's body is sort of a telephone for the tribe to the gods. The shaman goes into a trance, he speaks as the god, and he wakes up and he doesn't remember what he said because he's simply the telephone. He speaks as the god. He is the god for a moment. And then, and the thing is, shamans are even more interesting than that because they'll do all kinds of pranks and things like that. And the tribe understands that when the shaman pulls a prank on someone, often they're pranksters. Actually, a shamanism and clowning, that is in Aboriginal cultures, people dressing as clowns and doing ceremonies as clowns, that's completely overlapped with shamanism. Not all shamanism is clowning, but clowning is practically always shamanism. So it's very overlapped. In fact, it says in the Rig Veda that Shiva paints himself white with the ashes at the burial ground. So in other words, he's covering himself with the material of the incinerated people. So he's covering himself with the incinerated bodies of the dead, painting himself white with ash, and he does an ecstatic dance. But that's a perfect description of clowning. I believe it's the Rig Veda, it says this, and that's Rudra. He's called Rudra, then, not Shiva. But what the shamans do is they really take everything as an omen. If they feel an itch, that could be an omen. If they get a twitch, that could be an omen. If the weather, every little thing of the weather, every little movement of the animals, every movement in the nature is an omen, is telling them something from the gods. And they hear nature speaking completely. And today, yes, in the modern world where we're all disconnected from nature, that's schizophrenia. That being said, I do want to explain something about shamans. Shamans probably always have pitradosh. Pitradosh means they're easily manipulated by spirits. It's a condition in the birth chart in one's astrology in the time of one's birth. What this means is that the spirits will tell you all sorts of things, and all kinds of spirits will have connection to you. This is why shamans and druids were taught for 10, 20 years sometimes, because it takes time to sort out which spirits are telling you the truth. It takes time to push away bad spirits. It takes, and they can look at a child and see, oh, that kid is being oppressed by spirits. They can just see it. And they would take the kid, and in some cases, yeah, they would give the child various psychedelic substances so they could see the world that these shamans interact with. They can see the astral plane. They can see Bardo. They can see the maze, the labyrinth of existence. And I think that's so powerful to understand. But I think shamanism is also in another sense somewhat primitive because it's not exactly to the point of magic. It's a very natural, inherent magic. It's not to the point of like anyone could theoretically do it. And it doesn't, I don't know how much the shamans would expand, maybe into witchcraft, but I think maybe it was a bit primitive sometimes. Whereas, if we talk about ceremonial magic or some more complicated things, there's a lot more powerful things outside, even like beyond shamanism. But I think shamanism, understanding that is like the basis of where magic, the conversation about magic starts, I think is a really powerful, interesting place to start.
Yeah, so we are talking about different societies and their way of figuring out about life. And shamans are more respectful for me than the other societies. Shamans and pagans are more respectful for me than more like Abrahamic religions, and like also somehow also compared to Hinduism or Buddhism. Okay, more Hinduism, but and like so Buddhism and paganism and shamanism are more acceptable, not respectable. Okay, respectable because it was a practice of human, but also more acceptable than compared to the bizarre Abrahamic religion practices and happening, and the way that they created the way they influenced life and the societies and people. Like under, I believe that under Abrahamic religion, you lose sense of personal ideology, and also I like for me personally, I became nihilist under these ideologies, under these religions, especially when it became to dictatorships. And it comes to dictatorships, like living under dictatorship with one specific religion of kind of Abrahamic religion, and then practices of religion and the ideology. It made me nihilist in a sense that a lot of in daily life it becomes into behavior of people, parents. Like they get aggressive, they get chaotic, they get miserable, they get dirty, they do things that makes life, even for their own children, nonsense, unbearable, and nihilistic. So like, and then you lose the sense of magic, you lose the sense of self, you lose the abilities of self, you lose your aspects, you become one-dimensional, you stuck on the planet Earth, and probably your soul is you're gonna be divided in yourself. Like you're gonna be a soul that is gonna go to hell or heaven, and then a body on the earth to be suffered, and then being just like prepared to work and follow few desires in just one dimension, living one dimensional way of thinking, and which is dangerous, which makes a lot of people nihilist, and then again, nobody's gonna like the life. As we hear a lot, people are complaining and suffering of life, and also like yeah. So for me personally, it started from Islamic environment, country, place, nation, society, and then I traveled through the world. I tried to escape the situation, and then I went to church even, just because. Yeah, that's the. So these are all consequences of religion. Like you run away from Islam, and then you want to go to the other one, just to get rid of the previous one. So I went to church, and then I just became Christian. I tried to become Christian just because in under the conditions of Islam, Christianity was more glorious for me and more acceptable. And then I become Christian, and I realized that this is also another limited and sold and controlled glory. And there's no glory in it, but then it's somehow the glory is by just simply by the life itself, not by the religion. But then religion just brought some, like like they just try to make that glory for themselves, glory of life, glory of existence, to make it for themselves. Like if like it's just all happening because of God, and like not humanity itself. So like and their gods is crazy. Like it can be like the God can do anything basically, like it's a god of madness, like punish you, torture you, a hell waiting for you, and like making hell on earth, because now the hell is in the mindset, is in the imagination, is in the mind. So I'm on the earth with this mindset, so I make the earth hell for me and for who are connected to me, and like because then our emotions are involved, our core is involved into our mindset, and then it becomes our existence day by day. If we consist in the belief of religion, and so I became Christian, and then I realized this is also another type of brainwashing and prisoning, making of self soul, and then basically do and tortures soul, actually, like not just self, not just physically, but then by becoming soul, allowing them to torture your even like internal world, and like your internal world, which is much bigger than soul, becomes a soul, and soul is just controllable and predictable, and like created aspect of self. And like, so by becoming soul, you are signing to the religion, to the ideology.
Yeah, this is one thing about magic, is that it's the path of return, is what a lot of people say. That like you becoming yourself, you getting to your soul, to that core thing of what is you, I think this is a great note to end on. That just finding those things about yourself, like what do you want out of life, searching that out, who are you, everything like that. That's where the real power is in a lot of ways, and sort of channeling that into practices, I think. But you can get powerful practices, but the more you learn who you are, the more powerful practices you can kind of pick up easily, because a lot of the difficulty or advanced practices is about the question of who are you, and most people, I think, don't know and can't handle to ask. I like me, I did Tantra and Goisha without any real like safety net. I did it in a way that most magicians would consider really insecure, but it really wasn't that big of a deal, because I have a strong sense of self, and I kind of have some idea of like what I want out of life. And I realized some of the things were vain, but I was I was a little bit safe in the sense that like I have some idea, I'm someone, I knew what my core is to some extent, in the sense that it's something sort of ineffable and complex and multi-layered and many ways, but I had that understanding of that, and also that Zen sort of letting go. Because knowing yourself, it isn't like you get to your core and find out, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm a communist, you find out, no, you sort of find out you're sort of in a way nothing, but at the same time you are something, you know what I mean? And but sometimes embracing that you're nothing is actually like, or embracing that you're this sort of squishy, not exactly particular thing, it can be the most empowering thing that gives you the most stability, because then you're not easily rocked by like some little identification issue. So yeah.